Her Journey to Healing, Reaching Women with a Desperate Cry is an 8-week Zoom seminar in which Kamala and Winston help women to start living their best life by rediscovering the image of God in their life. Kamala, a licensed marriage and family therapist, joins her husband of 16 years, an ordained pastor, to marry the clinical and the spiritual. You will begin living your best life filled with love, joy, and peace. Register at kwministries.net for this life-changing seminar.
So anxious resistant. Now remember there were 4 categories, right? Mm-hmm. So anxious resistant kids were on the opposite end of the spectrum. They didn't have a lot of self-confidence. They really clung to their caregivers, whether it's parents. When I say caregivers, I mean parents, grandparents, just old people in their lives who were, really part of that initial bonding experience. For these kids, they tended to have really exaggerated emotional reactions to stuff, but they also kept the distance from their peers. How did this translate into adulthood? That translated into anxious, preoccupied adults. Mm-hmm. And so they kind of formed less secure bonds with partners and feel really desperate for love and affection.
God is patient. God is kind. God is long-suffering. God never fails. God always hopes. God always trusts. God always perseveres. God doesn't envy. God doesn't boast. God doesn't seek his own, but is always seeking what's best for you. God rejoices in the truth.
That's right.
God doesn't define love. God demonstrates love.
There's a commercial that used to say, "Don't leave home without it." I think it was MasterCard. And at the end, they would say, you couldn't put a price on it. A price could not be put on what you and your wife did for us, did for me this week. And I'm just praying that your ministry will continue to be the blessing to others as it has been to me this week. Just the opening of the eyes, just seeing God's word with a whole different set of lenses, just understanding what is required of us and laying aside the misnomers, the erroneous teachings, the errors, and just accepting who I am in Christ. And no one else could tell me who I am but the Word.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you for hanging out with us all week long.
Thank you for being there with us.
Right.
what I find most fascinating is a children's book. A children's book written by none other than a child, Ariana. With this book, she talks about her journey to healing, and she wants to reach children with a desperate cry. To me, that is so mind-blowing because, again, as children, we are impacted in ways that we sometimes haven't dreamt of, right? Whether it's, we were muzzled as children, whether we were not hugged, we were not loved, whatever those situations are, and we did not deal with them. And guess what happened? We grew up to adults and we bleed out on the people around us. So if we can address these things as children, OMG, can you imagine what a beautiful world that would be?
How are you this evening?
I'm doing okay. I'm doing okay.
How was your day?
Busy but productive.
All right.
Yes. How about yours?
Not bad. I'm a little bit busy also.
Yeah.
But I'm glad it's evening time. I'm glad it's Monday night.
Yeah.
I'm glad that we get to be here with you all.
Yes.
And we hope you all can see us because we. So we are live with Kamala and Winston.
That's right. And tonight we want to take a journey through the holidays, holiday blues, which is not an unfamiliar topic for many people. And we thought, we're already in the holiday season, starting with Thanksgiving. So what better topic to just kind of what's the word? Unpack.
Right.
Yeah.
And right before we get into that, Kamala, what is it that we do here at KW on Monday night?
Well, here at KWN Monday Nights, we are all about taking journeys through relevant experiences that we have in life. And when I say relevant, I don't mean that there's some experiences that are better than others.
Mhm.
I mean that relevant in terms of relatable. You know, tonight, we all live these life stories. We all go through challenges. We face trials. We face things that, you know, before we've been in that experience, we don't necessarily know how we're going to get through them. But here on KW on Monday night, we get the opportunity to talk with people about the different journeys that they've had. We've talked with people through divorce. We've talked with people through cancer. We've talked with people through friendship, through school, death. We've touched just a lot of different life areas.
And we have literally enjoyed everyone's journey who has talked with us. It's been inspiring. Last week, you had an opportunity to talk with Karen and her friend and Rita, and that was really touching and moving.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And if you're joining us for the first time, I think it's important for us to say that when we talk about taking journey experiences, we're in no wise saying that this means that everybody has arrived, that we have accomplished everything.
Well, we haven't.
We haven't. And the point is for us to be able to have a forum where we can just really be authentic about where we are in life, how we've gotten there. Sometimes we'll have conversations and we'll get really great advice. Sometimes we'll have conversations and we'll come away from it saying, man, I can really relate to that experience. But either way, just being able to talk together about where we've been, where we are, and sometimes where we hope to get to, we feel like it's important.
Nice. Well, for the next several weeks, next 3 weeks, every night, every Monday night, everyone who participates is going to get a gift.
Absolutely, that's right.
Yes, we're giving a gift to every single person that participates.
Okay.
But we will still also have a winner each night that gets a special gift. And we're giving away, Anna Kay wrote this book on Christmas in which she shared her stories, her lessons that she learned from a child. And so you'll get a chance to go in the kitchen and smell the food they made and hear the other sayings that they had. And I think it's a really nice gift. And we'll give that away to someone each night. So tonight we'll give that to the winner, but everyone that participates will also get a gift.
And what do we mean by participation? We mean, as we're chatting tonight, we want for you to get in the comments, ask questions, just comment.
Talk with us.
Talk with us.
And we'll talk with you. Yeah. So let's do this. Let's watch this clip. Tonight, before we say that, let's introduce tonight's topic.
Yep.
Journey to healing, coping with the Christmas blues.
Absolutely. It's a season that sometimes I think, if without really stopping to pay attention, we can, for some people, not for everybody, but for some people, we can just get caught up in, gosh, 'tis the season to be jolly, right? Tra-la-la-la-la and all that good stuff. But that's not the case with everyone. Many people experience holiday blues. Many people, as they're approaching this season, start to feel that change, and it's not always the most pleasant thing. So we just want to acknowledge.
We'll define it and talk about it, and then you're going to give us some coping skills.
Talk about how to cope, yeah.
All right. So let's watch this clip real quick. And again, please say good evening, comment, and talk to us. But let's watch this clip real quick that we found earlier.
Well, many of us are excited and filled with joy this time of year. For others, like we just mentioned, the holidays, it can bring anxiety and even that sadness. Theo Hayes spoke with shoppers and a doctor and has more on how to handle the holiday blues.
Black Friday is the official start to the holiday shopping season, and many shoppers will tell you there's a lot to get done.
To feel fully prepared is what the society tells you. You have to get gifts for everybody, and you have to have a good meal and decorate the house.
And with that long list of to-dos can come stress.
Yes, it can be overwhelming, especially for a broke college struggling student such as myself. I'm struggling, so I gotta like prep over prep. Summertime is my prep season.
The holidays are synonymous with family, and whether it's getting along at the dinner table or missing those who've passed on, for many, it can also bring on bouts of depression.
I lost my wife about 10 years ago, and I think about her all the time. And when around this time, we used to have great times together and everything, and that's why I feel depressed.
Dr. Elias Shaya is the Regional Medical Director for Behavioral Health at MedStar North and says sadness, anxiety, and stress this time of year are common.
The holiday is supposed to be a time of joy, a time of pleasure, a time of togetherness. And for some of us, it ends up being a time of being overscheduled and being running all directions, having even financial burdens or financial responsibilities, as sometimes we may even lose the spirit of the holiday and make it a little bit too commercialized, and it becomes all about stress and pressure.
No matter what it is you're going through, Dr. Elias says you have to find a way to manage it. He says alcohol typically makes things worse and that it's important to...
All right. So we have listened to, and the point that we wanted to get from that is that the fact that there are different things that people go through during this time of year.
Yeah. So maybe a good night, Hilbert Glenn. See you logging in. Thank you for being here with us. We're talking about the holiday blues, Christmas blues. So as we're thinking about this, you know, one of the things that stands out to me is just the idea of how the holidays come upon us, right? Mm-hmm. There's a lot you can't help but notice it in the stores. You know, people start putting out products. Everything is about the holidays, the holidays, the holidays. And so when I think about that, it makes me wonder, you know, what might that experience be like for someone who doesn't necessarily approach the holidays with a sense of, you know, gladness? Mm-hmm. What might that experience of watching things kind of get ramped up mean?
Well, let me ask you this question, Kamala. What are some of the reasons, as you heard in the clip, one young lady said, and they focused mainly on financial during the clip. One gentleman talked about losing a spouse, but one college student, especially for a broke college student, right? What are some of the various reasons people go through a challenging time during this time of year?
Well, I mean, as you said, they started with that financial changes. Is that it starts to tell me anyway that, okay, this is the time when I need to start making sure that I've got stuff for people. I've got to start planning to get together. I've got to start planning about, you know, gifts and all of those things. So there's a financial aspect that can be a stressor for a lot of people. The other thing that comes to mind for me is, just like the gentleman mentioned as well, that time period may be a time period where somebody who has gone through loss. It could be the loss of anybody, but maybe it's the first time they're going through this season without that person.
And even if not the first time, I've heard many people say, you know, it's Christmas time and my mom's not here.
Yes.
It's Christmas time and my dad's not here, or it's Christmas time and the family broke apart.
Yes. So it can be lost in terms of death. It can be lost in terms of separation. It can be lost in terms of just change, geographical change. I'm not where my family is. It can be lost as it relates to
house. Could house be a loss where, you know, we had this humongous house where we used to celebrate together and all the family would meet here and there.
Yes, and then there's no longer that place where we can come together. Other things that come to mind in terms of the difference, and I think this is an important distinction. There's situational kind of sadness and depression that might come with the season, but there's also some people who experience something different, which is seasonal depression, which even though it's not necessarily associated with the holidays, it's happening during
this time of the year.
Yes.
So a little bit more about the seasonal depression.
I mean, well, for seasonal depression, we're talking about, you know, the change in seasons. We're talking about the absence of the daytime is shorter. We're talking about people being
the sunlight is out.
There's less sun. And so we're talking about
leaves, all the trees
are losing. And for seasonal depression, the changing of the seasons indicates it's more kind of on a kind of a internal level as opposed to something external that's happening with someone. So like you mentioned, there's less sun, so there's less serotonin being in the body because there's less sun out. The days are shorter.
So does that go for everyone? Is there less serotonin being produced in the body for everyone and it affects some people, or is it some people there's less of it?
I think for some people it's less of it.
Okay.
And so there you have to notice that kind of difference between I'm affected by the holiday that happened during this time, that when the holidays specifically come upon me, I experience a sense of sadness versus as
there's something physical going on inside of me.
And one of the major differences with that as well is this idea that with something situational, I don't have to feel that way from year to year. So I can experience holiday blues this year, but I may not experience holiday blues next year. If it's we're talking about seasonal depression or seasonal affective disorder. We're talking about from year to year, like clockwork. Anytime this season comes, it comes with these changes in mood. So there's that major difference.
All right. So we talked about finance, we talked about loss, and we talk about the physical aspect of seasonal depression. What are some of the other reasons that people go through the Christmas blues?
I believe for a lot of people, it's really centered around those major categories. It's those losses and those financial pressures and those kind of events that occur. Yeah.
All right. If you're out there and you're hanging out with us and you want to share some experiences you have had from going through the Christmas blues, put a comment in there and let us know.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, before we even get into some coping skills, let's go into some of the reasons why in finances people go through so much challenges when it comes to Christmas.
So if we start globally with the societal pressure. Societal pressure to perform during the
it's commercial.
It's very commercial.
The United States of America and global, and to speak locally to the United States of America, it's commercial. They set up for we're in Christmas now. Well, let's start at the beginning of the year. They set up a Valentine's. Then they bring out the new spring wear. Then they bring out the summer wear. Then they set up for Halloween. Then Thanksgiving, or is it Thanksgiving then Halloween?
Halloween.
Walmart, they change their store like clockwork. So it's really commercialized. So that puts pressure on.
Absolutely. And there's this picture painted that during the holiday season, we're all going to get together. It's going to be a wonderful time. We're going to exchange gifts. We're going to do all of these things. It doesn't speak to the differences, socioeconomic differences, cultural differences, differences in family relationships that can also be occurring during that season. So here I am, there's this wonderful picture being painted of what the holidays needs to look like and what it can look like. But here I am, I've got family conflict. When my family comes together, it's not the wonderful picture that's being painted.
Right.
We're cooking together. It's fighting. It's contention. I've got to ensure that how I show up to this event, everybody knows that I'm able to contribute, even if I can. So you find that people, end up spending beyond maybe what they're even able to try to continue this image of what it's supposed to be.
So how do we cope with the financial pressures that come with this time of year?
It's an interesting question because it's difficult to not succumb to that pressure that we're gaining from everything in society that tells us we're supposed to show up in this way. Coping with the financial stress of it has a lot to do with acknowledging where I am versus where I am expected to be.
So let me ask you this question. Is there a root problem that I need to identify inside of me that causes that pressure? I mean, yes, I know what society is putting on me. Yes, I know, for example, in our own house, we don't have money. And I know that our children knows Christmas is coming. What's inside of me that external stimuli, that external pressure is triggering for me to want to do this, for me to want to buy, for me to want to spend what I don't have? What's going on inside of me?
I hate to identify just one root.
Right.
One of the things that we can think about is there a need to be accepted, to meet this expectation? To meet this expectation means that what I get in return is that social currency, that acceptance, that I've met the standard, right? And that feels good. That very much makes me feel like I'm a part of something.
But is it real?
Is it real? Interesting question. Does it feel real?
I guess it feels real if I'm doing it, but is it? So, okay, would it be fair for me to say there's an irrational fear that I'm not going to be accepted if I can't come through in that way?
I think that's very valid, because where did I get that idea from, that if I don't show up in the way that I'm expected to, that I will not be accepted? Where did that come from? And have I tested that theory? If I don't show up at the family gathering bearing the largest gift, am I going to be an outcast? Where did I get that idea from? So it's always important to kind of test our theories, our thoughts.
Let me ask you this question, Marla. Could it be one place that I get that idea from? Could it be how I view people who don't show up with? Could it be that if for Christmas, let's talk about us. For example, we don't exchange, between you and I, we don't exchange a lot of gifts for birthday or Christmas or blah, blah, blah. We are each other's gifts. But could it be that come the 29th of December, if I don't get a gift from you, that I am thinking negatively about you, which I then impose what I'm thinking about you on myself, and that becomes kind of a reflexive pressure that I put on me because of my thoughts about you?
I think it's definitely very much a part of it, because we do put pressure on ourselves based on our ideas that we're housing within ourselves. Just like you said, if somebody else did this to me, here's how I would feel.
Right.
Or they must feel the same way. It's an assumption.
Right.
It's definitely an assumption. But then there's also how is everybody around us socialized as well? What's the group expectation? And so that's why I say testing those thoughts that we're having and testing those assumptions is really a good thing for us to do, because sometimes, even though we have internalized this expectation, if you will, it's not necessarily true. So what that says is, okay, I don't show up with a gift for you. I make the assumption that because I haven't done that, you will forever look at me differently. Because I have that feeling, I try to kind of avoid you, right? Because I don't want to be faced with the embarrassment, the shame, the guilt, and all of that. And you know, acknowledging the thing that I, quote unquote, know to be true. That, gosh, I'm a terrible person in the holidays, right? Let's say that one of the stressors for me when I approach the holidays is financial, right? Let's say you and I had that kind of relationship where we know that, right? I don't know that I'm going to be able to have a gift for you this Christmas. Oh, that's okay. What I did is I avoided my tendency to avoid you, to avoid that conversation. And what I learned, maybe learning that interaction is, oh, this is not as big a deal for you as I think it is. But I would have never known that if I had never been authentic.
Right. All right. So you're saying to us that we should be authentic and we should be real. And that's one of the important things in life, is to practice authenticity. That's one of the very important things in life. So that's where the challenge is more of an internal issue, right? Let's now talk about the fact, because in some social spaces, in some familial spaces, there is an expectation for a gift where it's not, I didn't make it up in my mind.
Right.
If I don't bring a gift, there will be a gift for me. If I don't bring a gift, let's do what Brother Glenn said real quick.
All right. We've got a comment. Back in Jamaica, when my children were small, Christmas was a time when we looked forward to family coming together, sharing presents, having fun times, and also celebrating the reason for the season. It was always good to start saving early in the year, so you're not stressed out at that time by not being able to get gifts for each other.
So the Brother Glenn has given us one solution for next year.
Absolutely.
For next year is to start saving early in the year so that you're just done. That is a very, very good point. But this year is when I don't have any money. And it's real. I didn't make it up in my mind. It's real. My children want gifts. Everybody wants gifts. I don't have any money. What do I do?
Let me ask you this question. What's going to happen to me?
To my
No, say more. Let's paint a picture of what this potentially could look like.
Okay, so if you're saying that if my fear is real.
Yeah.
Oh, right. People are going to be disappointed. People are going to be upset. People are going to be, disappointed and upset and resentful. I didn't contribute to this social space or this, social space of what we normally do.
So that's the worst case scenario.
What are they going to do? Beat me? Put me in jail?
Okay. So I want you to notice what you said. What are they going to do after that? My worst case scenario is that there's going to be disappointment. There might be hurt feelings. Are they going to be there forever? Is there no possibility for us to have a relationship after this? Is that what I'm saying?
And if my relationship is only as good as the gifts I give,
then is it a relationship that I need to nurture at all? So you see, it still in a sense comes back to me. Because it's my own thoughts about what's the worst case scenario that's going to happen.
And regardless of what anybody says, it's how I allow those things to affect me.
Absolutely.
Wow. So here's what we've talked about so far. And this is good. Number one, we're saying, for most of us, we created this idea that the skies are going to fall out if we don't have gifts for people. We made that up. That's something in our own head. For some of us, it's us imposing on others our own thoughts of them.
Yeah.
So in which case we need to stop having negative thoughts about other people, and having negative thoughts when our expectation of other people didn't come through. That's one. Number two, the sky's not going to fall out. If I don't contribute to something, somebody else is going to contribute. And if we just have to have Christmas or the holiday season where we just sing around and sing songs, let's sing around and sing songs.
And I love that you said that. Here's why. Because notice what you did there. If we just have to have a holiday where we sit around and sing songs, that's valuable.
That is very valuable. It's not just,
you're right. If I can't afford something monetary, what's wrong with creating a tradition in the season
around presents,
around what we do bring to the table,
around presents, over presents.
Exactly. Presence. Yeah.
Presents. Presence over presents. Presents.
Yes. Because that is essentially relevant. If you're thinking about the holidays as a time of togetherness, then the togetherness, is that about the gifts or is it about who is here with you?
And so then, here's what I hear us saying. Let's change our value system.
Yeah.
And let's put less value on physical stuff and more value. And I think, if anything, the pandemic should have taught us that.
Yeah.
Because during the pandemic, we couldn't see each other. We couldn't touch each other.
Right.
We couldn't spend time with each other. We could send all the gifts we wanted, but what we wanted to do was to see grandma, was to touch grandma.
Yeah.
And so we need to get to a point where us being around each other is more valuable than what we give to each other.
And I think that's an important point. Those points are very important points when we're talking about coping with financial stress.
Right. This is purely financial
stress.
Right.
It is about also kind of making choices.
Right.
About what's valuable, what's important, or like Brother Glenn said, how do I plan ahead?
Right. So could we say this? Could you take some good advice from? Don't go break the bank for Christmas, and then come January, the kids are going to have struggled to go back to school.
Yeah.
That's important.
Yeah.
And because many people do that. Let's not get caught up in the commercialization of the season to where we make ourselves feel good now, but then come January, our children are feeling bad. Yeah. Our families, the responsibilities we have, we can't take care of them because we made ourselves feel good by giving these things that we couldn't afford to give. All right. I think we spent a lot of time on monies. And if there's a question, a comment, please share it with us so that we can share it also. Let me ask you this now, Kamala, and this wasn't in the 3, I think you said it earlier. How do I cope with, I'm going to be around family that I don't like and don't like me? Or how do I cope? How does that, this is a time of year when people get together and, somebody don't like somebody. How do I cope with that?
So there's some really practical things that we can think about, right? So one, let's first plan ahead. I know the holidays are coming up every year. It's happening, clockwork, right? It's not a surprise. It's nothing that I don't expect. I know it's coming up. I know that there's some conflict in my family. I know that there's some people that, we always,
personality difference,
whatever the
owe me money,
whatever the case might be. How can I determine what I'm going to do when I have to be in a situation that brings me face to face with somebody that is not necessarily my best friend? I can decide how much time I'm going to spend at events, right? So, for instance, the big Christmas dinner, right? I know that Uncle Bobby is going to be there. Me and Uncle Bobby don't get along. Uncle Bobby tends to stay there until 3 a.m. I can make a decision about whether or not I am going to be around Uncle Bobby for that extended time. That's one thing I can do, right? Does it mean I have to leave the event? It depends on my tolerance level, right? So I can choose to limit that time, or I can choose to shift my interactions. Maybe I don't hang out at Uncle Bobby's side of the table, right? Maybe I choose to engage more with other family members. Maybe some of the work is I need to set some boundaries with Uncle Bobby from earlier in the year too, right? Preparation, planning, thinking about.
So let me ask that question. And I'm gonna Uncle Bobby raped me.
That's a tough one. do I feel, am I able to manage this family event, period? Is probably the first question I need to ask myself.
Everybody's expecting me to be there. And I go,
am I able to manage being at this family event? Because that's a very loaded question. Because Uncle Bobby raped me also means that other family members are aware of this. It may also mean that I'm grappling with my thoughts about what it means that we're still having family gatherings where Uncle Bobby gets to be a part of it. And the expectation is that I should also be there. So there are multiple things happening.
Nobody else knows.
I think it comes down to, is this something that I am able to do?
Can I manage this?
Can I manage this, period?
But then if I don't go, I'm going to be lonely. You see, because while I'm at the table, Uncle Bobby makes me uncomfortable, so forth and so on. But Cousin Sue is going to be there. My brother and my sister is going to be there. The nieces and nephews that I haven't seen all year going to be manage this.
Do I have to miss out on my family?
Right, and I'm going to be lonely.
Yeah. Do we have the possibility to plan other events during that time period while everybody is here? Can we plan to go out? Can we plan around this main event? Maybe let's go have an outing with the cousins. You know, so we can look at when we talk about pre-planning, anticipating that this is going to be a challenging time for me. How can I think about various ways that I can mitigate some of the stressors? And so it might mean something like that.
So let me ask you this question, because something I haven't heard you said is, I report Uncle Bobby. I haven't heard that. And of course, I've asked you, I'm going to destroy Christmas. I'm going to destroy the family. But
no, I mean, if this is truly something that is a struggle for me, one of the things in terms of preparation and planning as well is, have I seen a therapist? As I'm going into this season, have I done that kind of planning? Knowing that I'm about to enter this very triggering environment, or that I'm choosing to enter this very triggering environment, how can I best prepare for that? And that might be through therapy.
That might be through therapy. And so I need to deal with this situation.
Yeah.
And because if it keeps happening, then I just haven't dealt with it.
Absolutely. Now, some other kind of surrounding things that we can think about managing holiday stress has a lot to do with the practical things that I'm doing otherwise. Am I getting enough rest? I bring that up to say this: everything is harder to deal with if I'm not fully rested. Think about it. If you haven't had a good night's rest, you're more apt to be irritable, tired, grumpy, all of those things that kind of come with a lack of sleep, right? If I know that the holiday season and getting together with individuals, we're talking about, family conflict, and getting together with individuals tends to be stressful for me, then one of the things that helps me to manage my stress is rest. One of the things that helps me to manage my stress.
So to make sure I don't go to that situation even more irritable.
Exactly. Because it's kind of a setup for disaster. Right. Because I've not shown up with all of my resources in place.
So I need to be as healthy. So if I know I'm going to a triggering situation, a conflict-filled situation, I need to make sure on my part, I'm rested. I'm not going in with assumptions in my own mind. I'm not going in already messed up in my own head. So I deal with those things. The Bible says, as far as possible, live at peace with all men, as far as possible with me. Very good. Thank you, Kamala. Thank you. All right, let me ask you this now. Let's go to this whole idea of loss. And Brother Glenn said something else before we go on.
I used to work through the Christmas time, and right after Christmas, I would take my family on a weekend on the North Coast and have lots of fun without the Christmas crowd. I hope Kamala remembers those times. Yes, I do. Those were very fun times.
Let me ask you this now. Let's go to this question. How do I cope with loss? Whether it's death, divorce, separation, This time of year, my house is normally the place where everyone would come, but now since the divorce, no one comes, or since the death, I don't want anyone here. How do I cope with this during this time of year?
Here's the hard thing. With loss, there is almost this, for some people, not for everybody, but there's this tendency sometimes to want to isolate.
Mm-hmm.
It's a want.
Mm-hmm.
It's not necessarily the healthiest want.
Mm.
Because being around people, having to engage feels difficult because we're anticipating that, you know, maybe people will ask about what, you know, this person was left or this person was passed or how I'm doing, what I'm feeling, and that might feel difficult. So it's very easy to kind of give in to this need to withdraw, this desire to withdraw. But as you're going through those first, especially those first time losses, even if it's not a first time loss, as you're going through that experience, it is important to connect to something outside of ourselves. Now, does that always have to look like connecting with friends and family? Maybe not. Maybe it looks like connecting through volunteer work. Maybe it's so it takes me out of the kind of mindset of I've got to now grapple this with Auntie Susie, right? But I'm still able to get out while giving myself an outlet and not giving into that isolation, if it makes sense. So we don't necessarily have to just think about it from the standpoint of, oh gosh, I shouldn't isolate, so I've got myself go to these gatherings. But we can find other ways to kind of solicit that internal sense of, you know, gratitude for life and what's here through doing stuff for other people who may not be, you know, associated with you necessarily.
Karen said,
holidays should not be a time of stress. Anything that's going to cause stress needs to be dismissed from the holiday list. You know, go ahead.
But
I was just going to say, I really love Karen's statements because some of the holiday stress has to do with, you know, being able to set boundaries where we need to set boundaries, you know, and not putting ourselves in situations that we know are going to necessarily be triggering that kind of stuff. So I think it's really important that you said that.
Let me ask you this question as going back to dealing with death. How do I embrace the good things, the good memories of losing someone, whether it's to divorce, whether it's to separation, whether it's to death? How do I embrace the good memories and those good memories
who is no longer with us? And so for some people, it looks like we're going to have this gathering in honor of, and this will be our new tradition.
So we were frozen. Let me just ask that question again.
Yeah.
Dealing back with loss, how do I use the positive memories? How do I use the positive stories from these experiences, when there was death, when there was marriage? How do I use those positive stories to help me cope through this season?
Maybe, so as you're going through the season, maybe now is a good time to create rituals, rituals of memory. Maybe this holiday season, we're dedicating this particular thing to this family member that's no longer with us. And that's going to be our new tradition. Yes, we're sad that they're no longer with us, but here's a way that we can carry their memory on.
And then let me ask you this, Kamala. Would that memorial and tears, wouldn't that be healthy also?
Absolutely.
As a part of the season? Does it have to be all giggles and laugh? And
no, it doesn't have to be. I think it's important for us to acknowledge that there is variation in our emotions. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing unnatural about it. It's perfectly acceptable to have mixed feelings going through the season, especially if it's a time of the blues. It's perfectly okay. What we have to learn to do is decide how are we going to respond to these feelings when they come up for us. And I said it before, knowing that I'm going into this time period where I can anticipate certain feelings, how do I plan ahead for that? Karen has a question. What is your advice to someone who pushes themselves to get out and socialize during the holiday, but find that they are miserable being in the buzz of activities? I love that question, Karen. Here's my answer to you. Titrate your time. One thing that we're trying to do, right, is that we go out there. I don't want to be here, but I'm gonna go. I'm gonna spend all 12 hours at this event.
Spend 15 minutes.
Spend 15 minutes. Spend 30. It's interesting. I was listening to a YouTube video on this very topic actually, and the person who was narrating it gave the example of this individual who really the holidays was challenging for them, and they were trying to figure out how am I going to get through this family event, and they were like, oh well, grandma needs to go home early because she takes medications at a particular time. I'm going to volunteer to take grandma home. And so I haven't lost out on the event. I still get to be a part of it, but I get to decide how long,
how much of
me I'm going to put into this. So kind of recognizing your own social boundary and telling yourself that it is okay to follow your body's cues and your needs as you're going through it. It's okay. Titrate that time,
I like that. So you don't have to necessarily miss out on everything, but you can spend some time just I like that. All right, Marla. So we've talked about the financial part. We've talked about loss. The other thing that we wanted to talk about, and we also talked about dealing with being able to cope with people around that we're not necessarily friendly with. Then just moved into a new city, or maybe I just I'm by myself in this in this new location. For whatever reason, I couldn't afford to get back home, or I'm not going to be home. I'm not going to be around people that I know during this season. How do I cope with this loneliness during the season, especially if I'm from a family where we are always getting together?
I think one of the very useful things we have learned over the past couple of years is that distance is not necessarily a separator. And so let's say I've moved to a new area and I won't be able to physically be with my family or friends during this time period. Are there other ways through the use of technology that I can connect?
Pandemic taught us something.
So can me and my friends have I learned this one this year. Forgive me, Facebook, YouTube, if I am late. This was new to me this year. I did not know this. I learned this one over the Thanksgiving period, that there's something called Friendsgiving, where a group of friends just come together for Thanksgiving. So it's not necessarily a family gathering, it's a friends gathering. But what stops us from having that kind of gathering over Zoom? Or what stops us from having, I think Netflix has like that, where you can watch movies together. There's so many different opportunities and ways for us to connect using technology that we don't have to relegate ourselves to just being sitting alone in a room. We can get together using these means. Other things as well, let's say technology is not your bag. I don't want to go about doing that. So what's going on in your community? Is there a local church that has events that you might be interested in or want to be a part of? Not something that's going to take up a lot of your time. Maybe you're a churchgoer, maybe you're not. You're not. But this is something that interests me.
Going to a local shelter. And
I was just thinking about Ariana. You know, going to a nursing home, bringing something, something that you prepared, or giving a talent offering, whatever the case might be. Just sitting down and talking with people. You know, what are some things that are out in my community that I can be a part of? That even though I can't be with the people that I'm closest to, I can still be a part of something.
Kamala said that, you know, it's thinking about Ariana, because our daughter went to an assisted living home and just got on the piano and played songs for people, and people cried and laughed and just had a great time. That was just a really nice gift of herself that she gave to them. So that's good. Dad said something else here.
One thing that would help, focus on the good memories, and will help you accept whatever loss you have experienced.
Right. That's going back to the whole idea of dealing with loss, is focusing on memories. I don't know that we value memories enough. I don't know if we value, and that's why they say you must, you know, live today, live your best life today. That's because of memories. Somebody else said you have nothing to fear for the future unless you forget how God led you in the past. Memories. So I don't know if we get in touch enough with our memories. Thanks for that, Glenn. For that point. All right, Kamala, I think we're almost out of time.
Before we close things off, though, I do want to point out and just kind of mention some of the other things that it would be good for us to keep in mind, not just for the holidays, but as we cope throughout the different seasons, right? I mentioned sleep earlier, right? Prepping myself so that I'm rested enough to manage challenges that come my way. Exercise. Thinking back to, let's say we're talking about, I've got less serotonin levels, there's not as much sun out, there's less daylight time, all of that. How else do I get those good feeling hormones pumping through my body? It's through exercise, right?
I know you're talking about dealing with the seasonal issues. We can address that.
But also applicable across the board.
Right.
Because the more I am able to engage my body in the process, right? So whether that's through sleep, through exercise, through what I'm putting inside my body, all of those are contributing factors to how I feel. So for a lot of people, many people who are going through loneliness, or they have family conflict, or there's financial stress, a lot of people cope with that through drinking. But alcohol is a depressant, right? And so by trying to cope using a depressant, I end up being in a more depressed state. So that's not just alcohol. There's noticing what kind of foods we eat and how it impacts our mood is important, right? If I'm a person that, you know, gosh, when I'm stressed out, I'm gonna have some chocolate. But if I gorge on it, it ends up making me feel sick and irritable, and I'm not gonna show up as my best self. So just being able to pay attention to all of these factors that impact how we feel is very important.
Karen said, loving the New Start principle, which the whole idea there is nutrition, what I eat, exercise,
rest,
water, sunlight, trust in God. What's the ART? I don't remember. Tell me the ART, Karen.
Activity, rest.
That's getting a Christian life, because you exercise there. But put them out there for me, Karen, so I can just highlight them. But yes, this is coping with right. Coping with sunlight, temperance.
That's what it is. All right. Thank you, Karen.
Coping with life calls for balance.
Absolutely.
Regardless of what time of the year it is, there has to be balance, regardless of what time of the year it is. But let me ask you though, Kamala, for this idea of seasonal depression, and I'm not talking about situational. No, I'm talking about chemical, where there are chemical imbalances. What do I do? I mean, what do I do?
My first advice is make sure that you're seeing somebody, a provider. If we're talking about a chemical imbalance, then ensure that you're in therapy. Ensure that if medication needs are there, that they're being filled. Ensure that you are balancing your life in other ways. So that includes things like, it does include things, I think we mentioned before, your rest, your nutrition, it's, how you're thinking about your life around you, your outlook. It's gonna entail all of those things. But for seasonal, for anything that's clinical, utilize the resources that we have. One of the things that I found really interesting is the impact of relationships. There was this study that was done, and it was for people who were kind of older in age. But they found that life expectancy for individuals who had connections, meaningful connections with people, life expectancy for them was longer.
Will go up. Authentic relationships.
And that's not to say that if you're struggling with something like, seasonal depression, that's not to say that, oh my gosh, you're gonna die young. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is employ all the resources that you can. Don't isolate. Don't keep yourself away from people and activities. But do allow yourself to also know what your limits are, and respond to that in a good way. Balance out the rest of things with your rest, with your nutrition, with everything that you need.
Let me ask you this question before I go. We talked about darkness earlier. One practical thing is the bright light.
Light therapy.
Talk to me about that real quick before we go.
Light therapy is something that's really interesting. What light therapy lamps can do is that it gives you an opportunity to create light in areas where maybe you wouldn't have that same sunlight, and so it kind of mimics the online that you can utilize.
So there's Google light therapy.
Amazon.
But they were talking about spending money again.
So yes. So
but that's an investment in yourself. If you're going through seasonal depression. All right. I want to say thank you so much to everyone. As usual, that hour just runs and runs and runs, and the clock doesn't stop. Was I frozen out? How long does now, Grindle? We talked about light therapy. But what we talked about just this second, Grindle, was light therapy. That for some people, seasonal depression is real. It's a real chemical issue, and we were saying if you, there we go. If you go ahead, Kamala.
So basically, I was just saying, the light therapy mimics what we're getting from the natural, from the sunlight, and that how the body produces serotonin. So light therapy lamps are really easy to purchase online, and really it's just about positioning, making sure that they're in places where you need them, just to kind of extend that benefit.
And the benefit is that it gives you it's not natural sunlight, but it tricks your body into you get some of the same benefits from sunlight for mental purposes.
Yes.
All right, okay. All right, thanks everybody. Annie K, who's our winner? First of all, again, let me say everyone is a winner. So everyone should go to KW, she's gonna put it up on the screen, kwministries.net/claim your prize. There it is on your screen, and everyone should go there. We have a nice KW Ministries calendar for you, and it's actually a really nice calendar. Annika sent me a copy that we're using for KW Ministries, that all of our guests right up until March is already in a beautiful calendar. Go and grab yourself a copy. It's free. It's digital. It's free. But then, Anna Kay, would you please roll your basket and let's see who gets our gift.
Christmas. Grin Recovery, you are our winner tonight. How you will get your gift specifically is you're going to go on to www.kwministries.net/claim-your-prize, put your information in there, and you will receive further
instructions. All right. So, Brindley, you're getting. I'm not sure you were here when we first started to know what you're getting. Anna Kay wrote this beautiful book on Christmas, on memories from her childhood, Christmas time, and it's a beautiful read. It's a beautiful read. But everyone go to www. A nice 2023 KW Ministries calendar for you. Blessings. Have a wonderful night. Thanks for joining us. Good job, Marla. Thanks very much. Appreciate you, girl. No problem.